The conversation ended 3 days ago, but in your head it's still not over. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That dialogue that lasted maybe a few minutes in the real world, but in your mind has been stretching for hours, days, sometimes weeks. The person you spoke with has completely forgotten, moved on with life, slept well, woke up thinking about other things, but you're stuck in that moment, as if it never finished happening. And the worst part is you're not just remembering. If it were just memory, it would be bearable. Memories are neutral, fragments of what was. But what you do is different. You reenact. You repeat every word you said, every silence you let linger, every facial expression you tried to decode. And with each repetition, you find something new to question, something new to twist, something new that could have been different. The real conversation ended when the door closed, when the phone hung up, when you said goodbye. But the version happening in your head, that one never gets permission to end. It stays there, spinning like a scratched record, always returning to the same part, searching for something you feel you lost but can't name. Some people talk and forget. They simply let words go with the wind, as if they had no weight, as if they didn't need to be stored and examined under fluorescent light. You look at these people and don't understand. How do they do it? How does someone speak, listen, respond, and simply move on, as if letting go were as simple as turning the page? Because for you, it isn't. For you, every conversation leaves a trail, and you follow that trail back once, twice, 10 times like an investigator returning to the crime scene, looking for clues that may not even exist. You analyze her tone of voice when she said that. You calculate the time it took to respond. You measure the distance between what was said and what you imagine was thought. And then you realize something. It's not that you have good memory. It's not that you care more than others. It's that you've turned every conversation into a trial. And in the courtroom of your mind, you're never just a witness. You're the defendant, the prosecutor, the defense attorney, and sometimes even the judge. All these roles spinning simultaneously while you try to figure out, was I good enough? Did I say the right thing? Did I seem the way I wanted to seem? This isn't thinking about conversations. This is rejudging your own social existence, sentence by sentence, pause by pause. It's as if every exchange of words generated a legal process you need to review eternally, looking for errors, for flaws, for signs you weren't understood the way you wanted to be. And what does this cost? Energy, an insane amount of mental energy that could be anywhere else, doing anything else. But it's not. It's stuck there, spinning around something that already happened and can't be changed anymore. You know this rationally, but emotionally you still think that if you review one more time, if you analyze from one more angle, maybe you'll find the answer that will set you free. But it doesn't come. The answer doesn't come because you're not looking for clarity, you're looking for absolution. And the court you installed inside yourself wasn't programmed to absolve. It was programmed to question eternally. That's your mistake. It's not the conversation that doesn't end. It's the judgment of it. But why do only some people carry this internal court? Why do others simply forget? Some people finish a conversation and move forward. You finish a conversation and a third eye opens. It's not that you chose to be this way. Nobody wakes up one day and decides to become the inspector of their own social life. But at some point, without realizing, you develop this additional awareness. A silent observer that never sleeps, never rests, never turns off. And it's always there, noting everything, filming everything, recording every second of your performance. While you talk, there's a part of you that isn't in the conversation. It's one step behind watching you talk. It's as if you were living and simultaneously watching yourself live. And this internal audience is relentless. It notices when you stutter. It notes when you laugh louder than you should. It marks the exact moment you said something you maybe didn't need to say. Other people are simply present. They say what they think, laugh when they find it funny, stay quiet when they have nothing to say. And then they move on. There's no permanent record being saved in their heads. There's no internal surveillance system backing up every frame of the interaction. For them, the conversation happens and then disappears, like smoke. But you're never just present. You're present and being observed. By yourself. It's like living under spotlights you installed yourself and can't turn off. Every gesture is noted. Every word is weighed. Every facial expression is captured and filed for later analysis. You turned your own social existence into a documentary nobody asked to watch, but that you force yourself to review eternally. And this wasn't born yesterday. Somewhere in your history you learned that being observed was dangerous, a criticism that hurt more than it should, a laugh directed at you when you expected acceptance, or just that look, that silence, that moment when something you did generated a reaction you didn't intend. So you did what seemed smart at the time. You became your own guard. If you could observe yourself before others observed you, if you could anticipate every flaw, every mistake, every embarrassing moment, it would be possible to avoid them. It would be possible to protect yourself. The internal observer was born as a defense. But defenses have a cost. The cost is you were never alone again, not even in your own thoughts. Even when you're physically isolated, in total silence, there's always someone there with you, watching, judging, commenting, and that someone is yourself. Solitude became impossible because you brought the audience inside. There's a type of tiredness that doesn't come from the body. It comes from never being able to take a vacation from yourself, from never having a moment when you simply exist without being evaluated. Other people rest when they're alone. You're busier when you're alone, because that's when the internal observer works full-time, reviewing everything that happened, preparing strategies for everything that's still going to happen. And the exhaustion doesn't come from conversations. It comes from the posthumous analysis of each one of them. It comes from watching the infinite replay of moments that are already gone. It comes from trying to edit something that already aired and can't be changed anymore. The world has already moved on, but you stayed stuck in the editing room of your own life, trying to cut scenes nobody else is watching. You're not remembering conversations, you're being surveilled by them, and the guard is you. But this doesn't explain why you analyze every word as if it were evidence. For you, language is never just language, it's always a message within the message. When someone says something simple, direct, clear, most people hear it and move on. But you hear it and then start digging. Because for you, what was said is just the surface. The real meaning is underneath, hidden between the lines, encoded in the tone of voice, camouflaged in the choice of words, and you need to find it. You need to decipher what was really being communicated. Someone asks how you are, and the answer should be simple, but it's not, because the question carries more than words. It carries the time they took to ask, the gaze that was fixed or looked away, the tone, the emotional temperature behind the syllables. Did they really want to know? Or was it just social protocol? And if it was protocol, what does that mean about how they see you? About how much you matter? A pause in the conversation becomes an abyss of interpretations. They took 2 seconds to respond. Why? Were they thinking about what to say? Were they uncomfortable? Were they lying? Or is there simply no reason at all, and the mystery is being created where there's nothing but common silence? But accepting common silence is impossible. Accepting that sometimes things are exactly what they seem to be seems too naive. Every human interaction has become a puzzle that needs to be solved, and the problem is using pieces that aren't even part of the game, seeing patterns where there may be none, reading secret manuscripts in conversations that were just conversations. Most people hear words and move on. They hear intentions when they're clear, accept answers when they arrive. But for those who overthink, there's a parallel universe of meanings that only exists in their own head. A place where every sentence has double meaning, every gesture has hidden purpose, every interaction is a psychological chess game nobody else is playing. And this consumes you, because there's never certainty. There's never a moment when you can say with absolute confidence that you understood what the other person meant. There's always another layer to peel, another angle to consider, another possibility you hadn't thought of before. The search for meaning becomes infinite because the terrain you're exploring is imaginary. The truth is, most people aren't hiding anything. They say what they want to say, and that's it. There are no secret codes, no encrypted messages. When someone says everything's fine, it probably is. When someone says they'll call you later, they probably will, or they won't. But not because they were lying strategically, simply because life happens and things change. But you don't live in this world of direct communication. You live in one where everything is suspect until proven innocent, where every word is interrogated under harsh light until it confesses its true meaning. And this isn't prudence. It's not emotional intelligence. It's refined paranoia. It's the fear of being deceived, transformed into permanent surveillance of others' language. And the exhaustion comes from this. From never being able to simply hear and accept. From always needing to investigate, analyze, question. You're not having conversations. you're conducting interrogations. And in the process, you lost the ability to trust that people say what they mean. Because if they do, then you don't need to decipher anymore. And if you don't need to decipher, you lose the control you think you have. Because that's what this is about, isn't it? If you can interpret between the lines, if you can read intentions before they become actions, maybe you can prepare yourself. Maybe you can protect yourself, but you can't. And this impossibility is what keeps you eternally searching for meanings that may never have existed. But there's something even deeper happening. Something that turns every conversation into an invisible negotiation you didn't even know you were having. You're never just talking. You're negotiating how you'll be remembered. Every sentence that comes out of your mouth is a bargaining chip. Every gesture is an investment in the image you're trying to build. And you know this. Even if you've never put it into words, you feel it. You feel the weight of every choice, every word, every second of silence. Because deep down you understand that every conversation is a transaction, and what's being negotiated is the way you'll be stored in the other person's memory. While you speak, part of you is calculating. Does this make me look smart? Did that sound arrogant? Should I have used another word? Should I have paused more? Laughed less? Your presence in the conversation is divided. Half is in the dialogue, half is managing the impression the dialogue is creating. Like a film director who can't watch their own movie without thinking about every frame, every cut, every decision that could have been different. There are those who simply are. They say what they think and let the other think what they want. If someone misinterprets, life goes on. If someone forms the wrong opinion, it doesn't matter that much. But for those who carry this internal court, every impression is permanent. Every judgment is a sentence that can't be appealed. Everything piles up like records that never expire. And why does this matter so much? Because deep down you're not afraid of being rejected. You're afraid of being misunderstood. That someone will form an idea about you that doesn't match who you think you are. That a misplaced phrase, a miscalculated gesture, a moment of inattention is all they need to define you in a way you'll never be able to undo. So you monitor. In real time, while the words are still in the air, you're trying to read the other person's reaction. Did their gaze change? Did their posture close off? Did their tone get colder? You're scanning every micro-expression, trying to detect any sign that the negotiation isn't going well, that the image you're trying to sell isn't being bought. And this turns everything into performance. You're not being authentic. You're being strategic. Every response is thought out. Every reaction is controlled. Every emotion is filtered through the question, how will this make me look? You lost contact with what you really feel because you're too busy managing what others will think about what you're feeling. The conversation ends, but the negotiation continues. Because now you need to evaluate. How did you do? What impression remained? Did you manage to control the narrative or let something slip that shouldn't have? And that's when the overthinking really begins. Because you can't simply ask. You can't call back and say, what did you think of me? So you speculate, you reconstruct every moment trying to guess what was recorded in the other person's memory. And the irony is, you do all this to have control. But what you really have is an illusion of control. Because people will think what they want to think. They'll form opinions that make sense to them. And it doesn't matter how much you monitor, how much you calculate, how much you try to direct others' perception. In the end, you don't control how you're remembered. You only control how much you suffer trying. Because every impression you try to manage is a weight you carry. Every judgment you try to anticipate is a rope that ties you. And the more you try to hold all these ropes, the more tangled you become. Until one day you realize you're not living conversations. You're surviving them. And the fear isn't of rejection. It's of being permanently defined by a moment. Because for you, every conversation leaves a record. And these records are never erased, never revised, never forgotten. They accumulate like evidence in a file only you keep open, and when you finally realize you said something wrong, that the impression has already been formed, that's when the real torment begins. The most dangerous moment isn't during the conversation. It's when the door closes and you're alone with yourself, because that's when it starts. The person you spoke with has already left, already forgotten, already thinking about other things. But you just entered the courtroom of your own mind. And the court is in session, it always is. There are no business hours, no recesses, no possibility of postponement. The trial begins the second you're alone, and you assume all roles. You're the prosecutor raising every error, every misplaced word, every embarrassing moment. You're the defense attorney trying to justify, trying to find mitigating circumstances, trying to prove it wasn't that serious. And you're the judge who hears both sides and never reaches an acquittal, because this court wasn't made to acquit. It was made to question eternally. The accusation always starts with the same sentence. You shouldn't have said that. And then comes the replay. You relive the moment frame by frame, word by word, expression by expression. You see the other person's face changing. You feel the weight of the silence that came after. You reconstruct the whole scene as if you could somehow edit it now that it's past. But you can't. And it's exactly because you can't that you keep trying. Because if you can understand exactly where you went wrong, maybe you can ensure you'll never make that mistake again. So you analyze, dissect, question every choice you made in that moment. Why did you say it that way? Why didn't you use other words? Why didn't you stay quiet? Why didn't you laugh? Why did you laugh? The defense enters with its arguments. It wasn't that serious. Everyone makes mistakes, nobody cares that much, but the defense never convinces, because the prosecutor always has more ammunition. And if it wasn't serious, why are you still thinking about it? And if nobody cares, why did you feel that look? And if everyone makes mistakes, does that make your mistake less real? Then the judge ponders, and the verdict is never innocent. The verdict is always, it could have been worse, but it also could have been much better. And that's the torture. It's not that you condemn yourself completely, it's that you never absolve yourself. You always stay in this judicial limbo where you're guilty of not having been perfect. And what happens next? You prepare, because the next conversation is coming, and this time you'll do it differently. You'll be more attentive, more careful, more controlled. You'll rehearse responses. You'll predict possible questions. You'll build strategies for every scenario. Like a lawyer preparing a client to testify, you train yourself for the next social interaction. But preparation doesn't free you. It imprisons you more. Because now you're not just living conversations, you're studying for them. As if social life were a test you need to pass, and every conversation you've had was a practice exam showing where you failed. And you collect these failures. You keep each one as evidence against yourself. Other people talk and move on. You talk, analyze, judge, condemn, prepare, and go back to talking, carrying the weight of all previous conversations. Like a prisoner serving time for crimes they may not even have committed, because the jury has already decided you're guilty. And the jury is you. The irony is, you installed this justice system thinking it would protect you. If you judged yourself first, if you were harder on yourself than others could be, it would work as preparation. It would create strength, but it didn't. It only created tiredness, more surveillance, more prison inside your own head, and the court never sleeps. Even when you sleep, it's there, processing, reviewing, preparing new cases. You wake up, and the proceedings continue open. Yesterday's conversations, last week's from months ago, all still under trial, all still waiting for a verdict that's never final. But the real weight isn't in what you said, it's in what you didn't say and never will. The words you didn't say weigh more than all the ones you did. You carry conversations that never happened, responses that got stuck in your throat, truths you swallowed at the last second because you thought it wasn't the right moment, or the risk was too great. Or maybe it would be better to wait for a next chance that never came. And these unspoken words don't disappear. They accumulate inside you like ghosts of conversations that could have been. Every time you stayed silent when you wanted to speak, an alternate version of that moment was born. A version where you said what you really thought, where you were honest, where you didn't calculate, didn't measure, weren't afraid. And that version stays there, next to the real version, eternally showing you what could have happened if you'd had courage. The regret isn't for what you did, it's for what you didn't do. It's not the wrong word that came out, it's the right word that stayed inside. Because when you make a mistake, at least you acted. But when you stay silent, when you swallow what you wanted to say, there's always that feeling of lost opportunity. That you were there, the moment was there, and you chose to disappear. And what hurts most is you had something to say. It wasn't empty, it wasn't just noise. It was real, it was yours. But the risk was measured. Possible reactions were calculated, and the decision came. Safer to stay quiet. Safer not to expose yourself. Safer not to risk being misunderstood. So it was swallowed. And the conversation went on without that part that wanted to exist in it. Some people say what they think and deal with consequences later. If it goes wrong, at least they tried. If it goes right, great. They don't carry ghost versions of themselves. They don't live wondering what it would have been like if they'd spoken, because they spoke and moved on. But those who stay silent carry an entire collection of unmanifested versions of their own life, and these versions haunt you. Every time you relive a conversation, you're not just reviewing what happened, you're comparing it with what could have happened if you'd been braver, faster, more present, if you'd let out what was inside instead of holding back, and the comparison always disfavors you. Because the imaginary version is always better, always more eloquent, more confident, more truthful. You don't miss what was said. You miss who you could have been in that moment, the person who speaks without fear, who expresses themselves without calculating, who exists completely instead of existing halfway. And every time you stayed silent, you killed a bit of that person. Not on purpose, but because silence seemed like protection. And maybe it is. Silence protects you from being judged, from being misunderstood, from being rejected. But it protects you from what exactly? From living. Because every unspoken word is a piece of you that never got to exist in the world. That stayed trapped, filed, stored in a place where nobody can judge you, but also nobody can know you. And you compensate. You try to find indirect ways to say what you can't say directly. You leave signs. You hope the other person will guess. You build messages between the lines and hope someone knows how to read them. But nobody reads them, because people aren't telepaths. They hear what you say, not what you meant to say but didn't. So you're left with this weight. The weight of conversations you never had, of clarifications you never gave, of truths you never shared. And these silences create a distance between you and the world. Because people only know the edited version, the safe version, the version you decided to show, the complete version, that stayed stored, protected, alone. And the strangest thing is, you keep preparing. You keep rehearsing what you'll say next time. But when next time comes, you hesitate again, calculate again, and the cycle repeats. Because the fear of saying it wrong is always greater than the desire to say it right. And in the end, you always stay in draft form, always almost ready, always one sentence away from being understood, but never getting there. And now the question you never asked out loud, but that pulses in every overthinking. Who are you when nobody's watching? The answer is simple and devastating. You never found out. Because there's always someone watching you yourself, even when you're completely alone, in absolute silence. With nobody around, you're never really alone. There's always this presence, this internal observer that never turns off, never rests, never lets you simply exist without being seen. And the problem isn't being seen by others. The problem is you turned your own solitude into one more presentation. You never learned to be with yourself without judgment. You never managed to simply be without evaluating if you're being the right way. Even in the most private moments, there's a voice analyzing, commenting, measuring. Are you relaxing right? Are you enjoying the silence as you should? Are you being productive enough? Or are you wasting time? Even rest became something that needs to be justified before this internal audience that never stops watching. And that's the real prison. It's not the world watching you. It's you. You installed cameras in every corner of your own mind, and now you can't turn them off anymore. Every thought is monitored. Every feeling is questioned. Every moment of quietness is interrupted by this need to check if you're quiet the right way. Other people have moments of peace, moments where they simply exist without thinking about how they're existing. Without measuring, without evaluating, without documenting. They close their eyes and rest. You close your eyes and start reviewing everything that happened during the day, everything you said, everything you could have said differently. Peace never comes because you never turn off surveillance, and overthinking about conversations is just a symptom. The bigger problem is you're never present anywhere. Not in conversations because you're watching yourself talk, not in solitude because you're judging yourself existing. You always live one step behind your own life, documenting, analyzing, criticizing, like a cameraman who never puts down the camera to simply live the scene. The truth is the observer and the observed are the same person, the judge and the judged, the critic and the criticized. You divided yourself into two parts and put one against the other, and now you live in this internal war where there's no possible winner. Because when you win, you also lose, and when you lose, you're also the one losing. And this division wasn't born from nothing. At some point you learned it wasn't safe to simply be, that you needed to monitor yourself, control yourself, adapt yourself. That letting yourself exist without surveillance was dangerous, so you created this internal guard, this inspector who never takes vacations. And he protected you, but the price of protection was never again having access to your own presence. You know what presence is? It's when you're so inside the moment you forget yourself. It's when you speak without thinking about how you're speaking. It's when you feel without questioning if you should be feeling. It's when you exist without needing to prove you exist. And you don't have this, because there's always this voice asking, how do I look? How should I be feeling? Is what I'm doing right? And the answer you never wanted to hear is this: there's no right way. There's no approved version of you that you need to perform even when you're alone. There's no standard you need to reach to finally have permission to rest. You're chasing approval that will never come, because the one who should approve you is yourself. And you programmed yourself to never fully approve. Overthinking isn't about conversations. It's about the inability to exist without an audience. It's about having turned every moment of your life into something that needs to be evaluated, measured, compared with an imaginary version of how it should be. And while you do this, life passes, conversations happen, and you're too busy analyzing them to actually live them. Moments move, and you're paralyzed reviewing the previous ones. And now you know. You know the problem isn't thinking too much. It's that you never learned to simply be. Without explanation, without justification, without defense, just be. And this awareness won't solve everything immediately. Conversations will still be reviewed. Judgments will still happen. The internal observer doesn't disappear overnight, but now there's vision, the clarity that the judge and the judged were always the same person. And seeing this is already the beginning of something different. The next time a conversation ends, let it end. Don't revive it. Don't edit it. Don't turn it into another legal process against yourself. Let it exist as it was, imperfect and complete at the same time. And notice the space this opens. The silence that remains when you stop filling every second with analysis. This silence isn't empty. It's the first breath of freedom you've had in a long time. You won't stop thinking about conversations overnight, but for the first time, you understand that the one who's thinking and the one being thought about are the same. And in this understanding, something changes. The weight doesn't disappear, but the relationship with it transforms. You still observe, but now you know you're observing. And knowing this is being, finally, a bit more present in your own life. Now you understand how the mind of someone who overthinks every conversation works. But there's another layer you need to see. Click on the video on the screen and discover the psychological mechanism most people never notice about themselves. What you'll find there will change the way you see your own mind. Click now on the video on the screen.